You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane.
Michael Howes.
NFL draft season is around the corner, so we brought on Maryland linebacker Ruben Hyppolite.
Not in the draft, but he knows a bunch of people who are. Take a listen.
Our next guest is a defensive stalwart for the Terps. He recorded the second most tackles last season for Maryland with 66, and he's going to be returning to College Park for one more season upcoming. Ruben Hyppolite, welcome on. So happy to have you on.
Appreciate y'all, man, for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm going to start with the most pressing news right now. NCAA 25. Did you opt in? Are you going to be in the game?
For sure, I opt in. For sure. Definitely looking forward to being in the game. Definitely looking forward to, seeing myself, running around making plays like I do in real life. So it's going to be fun.
Was it a hard decision to decide to get into the game? I know it's going to be pretty cool being able to play as yourself now, right?
Yeah, it wasn't hard at all. This is long overdue, in my opinion. So I'm just excited for the opportunity, man, just to be able to be in a video game, have younger kids or friends or whatever be able to use me, take their teams to the next level.
Talk us through the decision to come back to Maryland for next season. There's some losses over the offseason, but you were one of the big main players who decided to stay with the Terps.
Yeah, really, my thought process behind coming back, I just wanted to use, this past season that I had as leverage to be able to, do whatever I wanted to do, which was either declare or come back for another year. I just wanted to have that freedom. That was my goal going into last season. And I feel like I did a pretty good job this season, as far as resume-wise. So I just made a decision to come back because, there's unfinished business here for me. There's a lot of people that I've met out here, a lot of connections that I've, forged and relationships that I've built out here. So, just want to take advantage of it one more time and, just put another year together, let God do the rest. So,
In your mind, you mentioned it, but what is that unfinished business? Why'd you come back? What is that for you?
Yeah, man, I feel like we're right there. Last year we had, some games and some situations where we fell short that we shouldn't have. Like I said, we're right there. So I just feel like, I'm blessed with another opportunity. So, why not just do it one more time while I can? Because, this opportunity will never, come back again. So I just want to take full advantage of it and, leave my mark and really, make another statement. I think that was just my whole mindset behind, coming back and doing this over again.
I guess, can you kind of take us through some of those conversations you have with your teammates about potentially coming back? Because there were some losses, Jay Shambaram, Corey Dyches. Are you talking with your teammates, kind of talking through these types of decisions?
Yeah, a lot of the conversation was, between myself and, my family members, because, everybody has an opinion, I honor everyone's opinion, but, at the end of the day, it's my career, it's my life, it's what I want to do. So definitely took everyone's, opinions and comments into consideration. But at the end of the day, it was about what's best for me. And, what was best for me as far as system-wise, living-wise, and just, all around relationships. So that's what went into it. Myself and Dante Trader, we talked a lot through this process about what our decisions were going to be. So we was able to keep in contact and, make a decision that was best for us. So.
Who are some of those people in your family that you talk to? Who are those people in your life that you're closest with, who you talk about those decisions with?
Yeah, the main person is my mother. She means a lot to me, obviously, and one of the reasons why I do what I do. Definitely, have a lot of conversation with her. Her opinion is by far the most important to me. So, just asking her how she felt, telling her my side, how I felt about things, and letting her tell her side, and just keeping the main thing. That was our whole focus, and that was our point of emphasis. So I was able to do that here for another time. We both agreed on it. It was all set, ready to go. So
I kind of wanted to touch on the transfer portal a little bit. You know, players leaving more often now with the rule changes. Is that something that you guys are aware of on the team that, hey, a couple of my teammates aren't going to be here next year? Did you know that a couple of those changes were going to happen?
yeah, I mean, with the landscape now, it's 1 year seasons. Everyone's on a 1 year deal, so that's how we look at it now. Um, it's not like how it was before, or at least when I came in for the short period of time that I got to experience it, where you have freshmen from high school come in and it's a 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, or even 6 year development, and you build bonds with certain guys. So it's not like that anymore. It's more so like 1 year deals. You enroll as a freshman, you don't like it, you transfer. You like it, you stay, and you know whoever ups the ante, is able to get whoever they want to get. So just with the landscape of how it is now, just understanding where we are. Um, it's a given that you're going to lose players, whether that's after spring or after the season. It's almost, a guarantee, so like we understood, what the deal was. We knew that, some guys were going to leave, some guys are going to stay. It's just all about, how we bounce back and shake back from whatever occurs. So
I know that transferring obviously isn't the only big change. Conference realignment and 12-team playoffs, are those things that you guys have talked about? I know it was pretty clear that Maryland was going to stay in the Big Ten, obviously, but was that something people on the team were watching when teams are joining new conferences?
yeah, definitely as far as like with the addition with UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington, like we get to play USC this year for homecoming. We get to go to Oregon, I think like week 9. So it's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be fun to be a part of. Definitely, not only just the opportunity, but just for the culture of football. I feel like it's gonna be good to just bring a lot of people together from the West Coast, bring them down here, and then from us on the East Coast go out west and experience that. So but it's going to be good for the sport and good for the game. And it's going to bring a lot of eyes that we want. So
Kind of touching on the play of the defense recently, seems like the defense just continues to improve year after year. Can you kind of talk about the impact that Brian Williams has had on this defense and bringing that Terps defense to where you guys want it to be at?
yeah, I think it's it's all about execution and consistency. Coach Beat Up, as we call him, he has a recipe for that. So we're bought in. We trust him and his plan. As well as our position coaches, I feel like that our defensive staff does a great job as far as putting a plan together early in the week, and then it's all about execution from that point on. So we always go into a game prepared and ready to play, and I think that's a big shout out to our staff and just our coaches and how we prep through the week, the situations they put us in during practice, and um, they allow us to problem solve on our own, and then they take our feedback, and it's more so a partnership, which is very helpful. Just as a player, coach relationship, it's always helpful to know and feel the trust and to feel the bond that you have, that you can come to your coach whenever you can, whenever you feel like there's something we can do better, and vice versa. So I think that relationship is important, and Coach B-Dub and just the defensive staff, they understand that. So.
And then sticking with coaches, you've been here pretty much the entire time that Coach Loxley has been here. How have you seen him kind of grow in his tenure at Maryland?
Yeah, my biggest thing that I always say about Coach Loxley is just the connection that he has. Obviously he's a great offensive mind, great coach, great recruiter. But I think the biggest thing with him is he knows how to position players to be successful, not only on the football field but off the football field. He has a bunch of programs in place, like mentorship program, investment clubs, and just he knows how to get us in the room with a lot of people with power, which is important. not only for, our football careers, but for, our life careers, when we hang the cleats up. So I think that's just important that he understands the importance of life after. And, that's always a big emphasis for him. So I think, that's the biggest growth that I've seen just, being here. He's had that implemented since he's been here. I got here, I think a year after, shortly a year after he started here as far as head coaching. So that's definitely, what's impacted me the most, I would say, besides the football aspect.
What is Coach Locks like as a recruiter? We've had some guests come on who told some great stories about Locks and how they recruited him to Maryland. Do you have any stories like that?
No, the only story I have is just, being real and genuine. I think that was what, allowed me to really trust him. Very black and white, no gray area, which is, I'm a huge black and white guy. I like, things, presented to me in a fashion where it's truth, it's honest, and it's unique in its own way. That's just how I operate as an individual. So I think he was just very straight up. Me being who I am, just having faith in the system, having faith in the culture that he believed in, and just buying in. I think that was just the most important part for me, was just buying into it and believing it. Because if he didn't believe in it, no one else would. If I didn't believe in it, no one else would. So it all starts with take a step out on faith. And he did that for this program. I did it for this program, and we have I feel like we're reaping the benefits of it now. And it's starting to roll. So.
In terms of recruiting, I know it was like 4 or 5 years ago now, but I know you decided to enroll early. What kind of goes into that decision, and what's kind of the process like on the high school side, and then why did you decide to enroll early?
Yeah, I wanted to enroll early so I can get that spring ball under my belt. But unfortunately, that was around 2020, so COVID had started, and basically I missed the spring. So it was like I came in the summer, like I was a summer enrollee, which was a bummer. But definitely during that time, I learned a lot about just how to live on my own, and just being accustomed to how to build the right habits off the field, as far as simple things like when your parents tell you not to use too many paper towels after you wash your hands, and I use 3 or 4 at a time, and now I gotta spend damn near $100 a month on paper towels and getting that stuff. So it's just life lessons and life hacks that I learned during that time. Even though I didn't get the football aspect of it that I wanted, I definitely got the life experiences and the lessons from that, just by enrolling early and just starting ahead of my class, and just ahead of the game, being ahead of the game, being around the guys during the winter workouts, and being thrown in the fire. I think that's, that helps me the most as far as development. Just me, who I am. I like just being thrown into stuff and, just having myself figure it out. So that's really why I did it. I want to challenge myself. I feel like I superseded the expectations. And, it's just my job to keep it going.
Kind of touching on your future post-playing career, your communications major, I read, you got your podcast, One Speed Podcast. Is doing something in sports media something you can kind of imagine yourself doing?
Yeah, definitely. I want to be an analyst when it's all said and done. Definitely want to stay in the sports realm, really give back to athletes and pay it forward, because, that's what was given to me. So I definitely want to stay in that sports realm, man, and really, be on TV so I can show off these teeth. So.
How did the podcast start?
Yeah, it was just, one summer we were bored, and we were like, yeah, man, we gotta, we want to show that we're just, we want to show how we act and how we, talk and communicate, because I feel like, a lot of people, they just see us with the helmet on. Like, they don't really understand us, if it's not with the helmet. Like, so we wanted to, be able to take the helmet off, people to see our faces and hear us talk, and just, kick back and relax and really give the people and the viewers a deep dive into our thought process, our emotions, our feelings, whether it's about the game, anything, relationships, just being a man in this day and age, and 18 to 22 is how we navigate that. So that was just our thought process behind it, and it's doing well. It's doing well for us right now. Just a lot of people are enjoying it, and we got to keep it going. So
I also read that you wanted to be a sports agent. Is that something that you're also looking to kind of pursue later on?
no, not anymore, not at all. No, I don't even want to do that no more.
What
It was
caused the change?
NIL. I'll say that. It's a lot of loopholes, and uh, you know, I just don't want to deal with that. Man. I want to leave that to people who have put the time into this business and let them handle that side. But I definitely want to be more on the mentor, analyst, side. So
What are those NIL loopholes that you're kind of seeing?
it's a lot of gray area, and like I touched on before, I'm a very black and white guy. Man, just shoot it straight, tell me what it is, and I move on from there. But I think it's a lot of loopholes in here as far as NIL goes, and a lot of people just don't know what it is. Like the education piece of it is not there for everyone. So that that calls for uncertainty. So I think that's just the loopholes that are there. There's a lot of gray area, a lot of uncertainty. And yeah, I just it's not for me. So
Yeah, we did a podcast last spring on NIL, and it was the same thing. Like, pretty much people just don't know what's going on, and even people who are experts, like, rules are changing all the time. So I absolutely agree with you on that. And I think we've even seen like coaches decide to like step down from being a head coach because they just don't want to deal with it.
right, sure.
In terms of on the field, this year, I know you changed your number to number 4 for the bowl game. Any reveal on upcoming season number? Any reason you did that?
Yeah, I'm staying with 4. 4 is like a number that a lot of great defensive players wore here. Um, you got your Keandre Joneses, you got your Darnell Savages, um, Tarheeb Still, most recent one. So Will Likely is here. We had 4. So um, to me, it's traditional. So I just want to keep that going, um, and just represent the number, represent Maryland in the right way. So that was my thought process behind it. Um, yeah, man, it looks nice. I look good at 4. So
I know you have some teammates heading to the combine and hopefully getting drafted. Do you want to give us some predictions on where you think they'll land? What rounds you think?
I think all the guys that are majority of them that are going into the draft have a great chance of going even late in day 1, I believe, or like early day 2. So I think a lot of our guys have a great chance to get drafted pretty high because they create a lot of value for themselves. For the time that they were here. So I'm excited to see where they land. Obviously, no one knows. We only know, when draft day actually happens. But I have a great feeling that a lot of the guys are gonna, you know, get drafted high, make a lot of money, and then have very, very successful careers. And I'm just excited to be in that position next year, God's willing. So.
Kind of looking forward to next year. Can you give Terps fans a preview of any breakout candidates you see on the team so far?
We have a lot of young guys, man. I think our DB room is going to be really good. We're going to have a lot of playmakers on the outside. Is going to be able to make a lot of plays for us to help us out. Our safety room as well. So I think our whole back end, as far as defensive wise, is going to be in great hands. We got 3 quarterbacks that the competition is going to be really good this spring. So just excited to see them compete and perform and I feel like they're all going to have successful springs, successful camps, successful careers just at Maryland. So I think those are the two, big question marks that we have. But, I feel like that's going to be one of the strongest pieces of our team. As well as our trenches, O-line, D-line, we have a lot of great pieces. So I think we're going to be well off, man. We're going to be really good, really solid. And we're going to, showcase our ability and who we are as a unit every time we get a chance to take that field. So,
we've talked about your podcast a little bit. Pretty comfortable talking on the mic. So, any guests you have in mind in the future on your podcast? Any, somebody you'd love to have on, and anybody like that? Any dream guests?
Yeah. So we have a lot of guests in the works. Actually, we got Jameer Young cooking up. We just did Nick Cross. I think that was our last podcast episode. So we have a lot of insight. Sports swaps. We did a lot of sports swaps. So we did one with women's basketball that we didn't drop yet. Looking to drop that probably like around March. We got a lot cooking up, man. So it's just fun to be able to connect, with not only the sports side of just UMD, but get in the community. Looking to do a backpack drive again that in the summer that we did last summer. So looking to get back to the community in that way. So this is a lot of fun just to be able to do business with, not only do business with my teammates and my brothers, but to be able to make an impact in the community and have people be inspired and just appreciate what we're doing. So that's just a little sneak peek of what's in the works, but it's a lot more, man. So y'all just have to stay tuned for it and, just be able to be on the lookout for it. That's all.
Absolutely will do. Well, Ruben, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it, and we'll stay tuned with your podcast as well. So thank you very much.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
And that was our interview with Ruben Hyppolite. He's going to be one of the Terps leaders heading into next season, so really interesting listen from him. But moving on to the biggest game of the past weekend, Maryland women's basketball taking down number 1 seeded Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. Huge statement win for the Terps, their first ranked game win all season. And we got someone on the podcast who was there, who watched it live in Minnesota. Sam Jane, what did you see from the Terps?
Yeah, I was there. It was cold, but no, Minneapolis was fun, and it was made a lot more fun because of Maryland's win. Pretty much a dominant wire-to-wire win against the Buckeyes. I think that the biggest takeaway that you can have from that game is Maryland finally flipped the script on what's been the narrative of their season. We've talked all year, guys, about how this team has really struggled against ranked teams. They hadn't beaten one, like Mike said before, but never was pretty much in control the entire way. So the biggest difference, I thought, between this game and the matchups in the regular season was, Cheyenne Sellers played incredibly well comparatively to her last 2 games against Ohio State. Really was pretty much got to the basket at will, had a team-high 25 points on 9 of 17 shooting, to go along with 7 assists and 8 rebounds. Talked her smack too after the halftime buzzer. She gave just a stare out into the crowd, and then at the end of the game started screaming, "Peeking at the right time, peeking at the right time." So clearly she's feeling herself. And then defensively, I think that Maryland played a really well game. Brenda Freese decided to go with an entirely man-to-man defense instead of kind of mixing in the zone they had. And it worked. They slowed down J.C. Sheldon. Cody McMahon was horrendous. Cool stat that I was able to dig up. In Ohio State's losses this year, she's averaging 7 points a game on pretty inefficient shooting. Just for context, this year she's around 15 points a game. So they stopped her. And yeah, it was just a really well executed, really well played game by Maryland.
Moving on to the next game, though, Nebraska, they did drop that one. What did you see from them that game? What can they build off of? What kind of went wrong there?
I think that really it was just a case of Nebraska shooting the living crap out of the ball. I mean, in reality, sometimes teams are just going to make shots. Nebraska entered the game second highest in the Big Ten in 3-point attempts. They were 10th in 3-point shooting percentage. They shot the best they had all season and made the second most threes. It was almost like I got a Caitlin Clark preview before Caitlin Clark stepped onto the floor. She was amazing, and Nebraska just shot it well. I thought Maryland played well enough to win. They got a lot of what they wanted on offense, but I think tired legs and Nebraska just with some really good timely shooting kind of ended the game. And I think Maryland heads into March probably feeling pretty good about where they're at. I would guess they're going to get a 9 or a 10 seed. Preferably, I think if you were Maryland, you'd rather want the 10 seed. I don't know what you guys think, but that way you get a 7 and a 2 versus one of the 1 seeds, which is probably South Carolina. Texas today won, so I think Texas, Stanford, and maybe and Iowa. Sorry, so one of those 3 teams, because you can't play Iowa, but that's a tougher matchup than a lot of the 2 seeds. So I don't know, Mike, Brendan, what are your guys' thoughts on where they should lie?
Yeah, I think it's a scenario you wouldn't really think about, but I think Maryland probably would rather be the 10 seed than the 9 seed because, like you said, I think they're playing at a level, at least we saw in the Ohio State game, and Nebraska played an incredible basketball game, so you can't fault Maryland too much there. But I think Maryland feels confident they can beat whatever 7 seed they'll have in front of them, and then also give the 2 seed a run for their money. I mean, if they play like they did in the Ohio State game with incredible shot making, which you obviously can't always rely on, but it's a game of runs, so who knows? But I agree they'd rather be the 10 seed and then be able to play a team that's not quite as hot at the moment, or maybe not a conference champion. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, they've played South Carolina, they've played Iowa already this season, so they've got to look at them. Iowa, I would say, is a more favorable matchup just because of the way the Terps battled against them in College Park.
They can't play Iowa.
They can't.
Because the NCAA doesn't allow for conference teams to play each other within the first 2 rounds, or they try extremely hard to avoid it.
So then I guess they've gotten to look at South Carolina. Like Brendan said, seeing them beat Ohio State gives you hope that they could possibly take a 1 seed down if everything is working right. Players staying out of foul trouble. Shai Sellers did finish with 5 turnovers, probably something she doesn't want to happen in another matchup against a big-time team. But if things are clicking for them, you can't count out Brenda Freese in Maryland in March.
Yeah, she dominates the Big Ten tournament. She has the highest win percentage of all time in Big Ten tournament, win percentage, which is pretty crazy considering Maryland's only been here for 10 years, or 9 years. But they've obviously really flipped it around. I don't know. I go back and forth, and I want to get your guys' kind of outsider opinion because I do agree that I think this team is peaking at the right time. They're playing well. I do think I would pick them to win that first game just looking at the 7 seeds if they get a 10 spot. I still don't know if I fully trust them to beat a 2 or a 1 seed. Yes, beating Ohio State was a great win. I'm not trying to discount it or take away from it. Although your record says what you are, right? I mean, they were 0-8 at that point against top 25 net ranked teams. So I don't necessarily think that you can just, they beat Ohio State. I'm not saying you guys are saying this, but they beat Ohio State. Let's just book them for a Sweet 16 trip. They still have very clear flaws on their roster.
Right. And you got to think that teams will be looking out for Maryland as a potential upset team now, especially since they just beat Ohio State. But I do think this kind of changes the narrative of the season a little bit. Heading into those last few weeks, there's a lot going on about Brenda Freese, her recruiting. She's still at the top of the game like she used to be. I think the fact that the Terps have kind of compiled this late season push, considering they have really only a 6-player rotation at this point with 3 knee injuries, freshman heavy roster as well. I definitely think it is a testament to the leaders of the team, Bree McDaniel, Shai Sellers, and something to look forward to next year when you have that duo back in College Park for one more year. Especially with the jump that Bree McDaniel made her sophomore year. Everybody was talking about Bree McDaniel. She's the contender to have a breakout season. All the expectations that people were pumping up preseason.
Yeah. Crazy shot at my publication, but yeah.
Mine as well.
Yes, our publication. Good point.
To go back to the question you did ask, Sam, about kind of the outlook of the season, I don't know, the peaking at the right time, the comment that Shai Sellers made, has me questioning a little bit about if that's necessarily accurate or important, right? If you look at the last 2 games, Maryland, the Nebraska game and the Ohio State game, even though Maryland lost to Nebraska, those are still 2 of the better games they've played this season. But if they were truly peaking at the right time, they would have won the Big Ten tournament. Because this team's peak would be, in an ideal game, they could win the Big Ten tournament. Obviously, that didn't happen. And you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, maybe, but I think that is necessarily true. And I don't know, maybe you'd rather have peaked like 3 weeks ago, so you didn't have to put so much pressure on the Big Ten tournament to make the NCAA tournament. So those are just my thoughts. And I guess you'd ideally want to peak at the last game of the season. I didn't say anything too coherently there, but you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree. If they were peaking, they would have won the tournament. But, I mean, pulling off an upset against the number one seeded team heading into that tournament is, I would say that's eligible to use the term peaking.
I think you guys are both right. I think I understand what Brendan's saying through his muffled audio, that this team's peak should be higher than what it is, right? Like they should have more than one win against a ranked opponent because they showed, like, they have talent, right? Shai, Bree, Jakia, that's a trio that can go up against any in the conference. And then add in how Faith Masonis played this weekend. That's really dangerous. I mean, the senior was probably played the best 3-game stretch I've ever seen her play in my time covering them. So I get what Brendan's saying, and I also understand what Brendan's saying, because this team, we'll have to see in March, and at least they've earned the opportunity to do so, right? Which we can't say about the men's team because they will not be playing. Well, they'll be playing in March, but not in the big March that everyone expects. Real quick hitters just lost to Penn State. The season they'll play on Wednesday, day of this recording in the Big Ten tournament. They will probably lose within the first 2 days, I would say, and that'll wrap up the season that's kind of just been in free fall for a while.
One interesting thing that stood out to me from Penn State, post-game, Willard mentioned how he might have leaned on the freshmen too much heading into the season, as in Jamie Kaiser and DHS. And honestly, probably true. We were entering the season talking about how DHS is going to be the starting shooting guard from day one. Those are tough expectations to put on a player right out of high school. And we might have thought DHS was the type of player to step into those shoes, but he has proved to not. Okay. I did. Sam pointed out preseason about the shooting concerns. And
I thought Kaiser would be way better, so I'm not trying to take a victory lap here. I agree with you, Mike. I think that Willard put too much pressure on these guys. But also, they also underperformed, right? Like, I think it's fair to say that Willard put too much pressure, but you also need two top 100 freshmen to be not net negatives on the court, right? Like, especially the Gatorade Player of the Year. I thought DHS might not be a lock for Big Ten Freshman of the Year, but I didn't think that he would be as bad as he's been this season. So I don't want to make it sound like I was on this DHS, oh yeah, he's going to be terrible train. I just didn't think he'd be a lock for Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year in the conference. He hasn't even come close to that. So I agree with Willard, but part of that is also the players have to play. They got to be the guys that they were built to be.
Yeah, I agree with Willard, but I don't necessarily feel bad for him. Roster construction doesn't fall on anybody but the coaching staff. And it's clear that the biggest flaw of the men's team is roster construction. And at a certain point in the season, it was pretty clear to see that no matter what you want to do as a scheme, there's really not that much, of an opportunity for growth and much opportunity for this team to, have much success. And I think we've seen that probably since the second week of Big Ten play. So, if they run the gauntlet in the Big Ten tournament, it's very unlikely. Let me just read you the list of who they have to beat, assuming all seeds stay. Rutgers, like Sam said, on Wednesday, and then they'd play Wisconsin, Northwestern, Purdue, Illinois. That's if the seeds stay and Maryland were to win those games. That's not going to happen, but Maryland, I just see no possible way they could even make it to the semifinals.
It just makes it seem like this team's legs are like they're just dead. Like it doesn't look like there's a lot of galvanizing fight. You know what I mean? It looks like they kind of, I'm not trying to say they're not playing hard, but it almost feels like, all right, let's just end this season,
They never had that. This team never had that. The team had last year is in big games, like the Purdue game, for example, the one that stormed the court. That team had excitement and that team had energy. Even just watching this team and the way they interact with each other, the chemistry is clearly not there, and they had a very difficult time getting up for big games.
Would you call it peaking at the right time if they can pull off a win against Wisconsin?
That's very funny, Mike. I would call it peaking at the right time if Jameer Young averages 33 or more in the Big Ten tournament, and they make it to the semifinals. That would be ridiculous. I mean, I just don't think that's possible.
I call it peaking at the right time if they lose in the first round so the season can be over and we don't have to watch them.
Can they even make the NIT at this point or the CBI?
I haven't looked too much into the predictions in the past couple of weeks, but I know heading into the past week that they were kind of on the bubble of the NIT, but I don't know, you watch the Penn State game and they don't deserve to make the NIT, but maybe if they win 2 or 3 games in the Big Ten tournament, you could see them, but I really doubt it. I guess they could make the CBI. I don't know. We'll have to see what the team ends up deciding to do. They could also decline that invitation. This team is probably ready to be done.
Super exciting times in College Park for the basketball team. Psych. But exciting time this past weekend in College Park, actually. And we talked about me being in Minneapolis. We had one of our own at site for probably, we say the Ohio State game was the biggest win. This was easily the second biggest win of the weekend. The women's lacrosse team took down number two, right, Brendan? James Madison. Crazy good game. I watched, a decent amount of it in Minneapolis because I was looking forward to it all game or all day. And they played a great game, 11-8 win. They were in control pretty much throughout. B, what did you see? Again, another excellent Emily Sterling performance. I'm sure you're going to talk about her, but overall from the team, what did you like from the Terps?
It kind of started off looking like JMU was going to do what they've done all season. They came into the game on Sunday averaging, I think 18.3 goals per game, which is kind of absurd. I mean, they hadn't played the toughest competition, but they had played some very, very good teams. So, going into the game, they scored 4 goals in the first quarter, and they scored a goal, 45 seconds into the game. So it kind of looked like JMU was, maybe going to offensively steamroll Maryland. But like I've said all season, the strength of this Maryland lacrosse team is their defense, and it certainly showed after the first quarter. I wouldn't say looked particularly strong, but midway through the second quarter, Libby May had 2 straight goals. And then including those 2 goals, Maryland scored 8 of the next 9 goals. And that stretch lasted pretty much from the middle of the second quarter to part of the fourth quarter. And if you go on that hot of a streak, pretty much, there's no reason why you should lose the game. And JMU was starting to crawl back, but then, like you said, Sam, Emily Sterling had 8 saves in the fourth quarter, which, in a 3-goal game, you allow even 8 good shots in the fourth quarter. It could have been a recipe for disaster, but she had some really big saves, some good free position saves. So overall, super strong performance, and I think you have to really be happy with the way they played. And it's, it's a good time to, have a big win, and then they get some easier competition. 3 unranked games coming up. Next, Ohio State, starting Big Ten play. I expect Maryland to win that game by a lot. Common opponents, Maryland beat Denver. Ohio State lost to Denver by 10. And in Ohio State's only Big Ten match so far, they lost to Michigan by 6. So I would assume a good win for Maryland, and this team is strong. I think the way this roster is constructed, unlike last year they were competitive in every game, but there were certain games you knew that they just weren't going to win. But yeah. I think this team can compete with any team in the country.
I mean, within a month of the season to already have 3 ranked wins, that's pretty impressive. And the Big Ten, there's opportunities for resume boosters. It feels like they might be on track for a 1 seed. If they hadn't had that weird game early in the season, they'd be right there, and I think that, for as young of a defense as they are, the defense has been super impressive. I mean, it's been top 5 in the country, I think, in defensive efficiency. So just been an awesome turnaround.
Yeah, if they had won the Florida game and whatever, I think they'd be the number 1 team in the country because they'd be the best undefeated team in the country.
They should have
4 ranked wins, and they should have won that game.
I mean, they should have won that Florida game. So I mean, I really think that I really like seeing what Kathy Reese is kind of doing with this team, and the Stars are leading the way, but I think they're building out that depth. I mean, Haley Russo didn't play a huge role last year. Had a big goal this last game, so super fun to watch. The women's lax and the men's lacrosse team has been really good so far. The men's lax team had a bit of a tougher time, almost lost to Brown, who not necessarily a top opponent, Brendan. Brown had come
unranked opponent of the season.
Yeah. There's Mike with his common lacrosse stat poll. But yeah, no, a very interesting game. I didn't get to see any of it, but I've been reading up on it. What were the takeaways, you think?
I got to see a good bit of it. I talked about it last week. Brown is bad. Brown is not a good team this year. Maryland was 10-goal favorites. That is a ridiculous margin. And I think if you'd shown me that before the game and then you said Maryland won in overtime by 1 goal, I probably wouldn't have believed you. And Maryland had chances to lose that game. Maryland had to come back in that game. The biggest thing is that Luke Weirman was out. face-off man for the Terps. When you have a change like that, it just impacts a lot because it was coming to the game. They're easily going to get fewer possessions. He dressed for the game, but he didn't end up actually getting in for any plays. He got injured in the Notre Dame game. So that was a big change, but that really shouldn't affect you that much. I think it just kind of killed the momentum from the start. Brown had 2 early goals because of that. And then in the last minute of the game, or last few minutes of the game, Maryland was leading, and then Ajax Zapatello got injured on a shot block and was out for the next possession where Brown ended up actually scoring. The other thing we didn't see is the offense had been way more spread out in terms of sharing the load, but Braden Orxa had 5 goals, Daniel Maltz had 4. And so that kind of offensive production in terms of sharing shots and sharing goals wasn't quite there. But I've always said this. I think you've probably heard me say this. It's kind of my common take is that great teams are going to win those games. Bad teams lose those games. And it's not pretty. No one would have expected it, but it doesn't matter because you get the win and then whatever, Maryland moves up in the rankings. So still a very, very big win.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, B, I don't want to spend too much time, but do you think Urksa, I know he's not like a Bernhardt or a Wisnauskas, but where do you think he kind of stands across the country as like a top attacker?
I think it's hard to say. I think if you look at the people that Maryland have had in the past 5 or 6 years in terms of offensive production, they probably had someone on their team who's probably in the top 5 or top 10 in offense. And I don't think he's quite there, but this team is never constructed to be a completely offensive team like we have seen in the previous years. So I think that he's probably in the top 20, but at the end of the day, that's not what this team is really constructed to do. They're really constructed to score by committee. But, if they have someone who continues to step up, that just continues to put more pressure on defenses. And then
go ahead.
Looking ahead to the weekend, big matchup against Virginia was the game last year, kind of the star win for Maryland last year. Virginia's coming in 3rd in the country. Maryland's 5th. UVA's only loss is to Johns Hopkins. So another huge test for Maryland. And this game could honestly go either way.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Really tight game. And that was a common theme, I guess, because the softball team played in a pretty close one too. Walk-off, big-time game-winning RBI for the Terps. Michaela Jones scored on a Reef double against Boston College to finish 3-2. Terps split the series 1-1. They moved to 8-13 on the year. At the time of this recording, they'll have played Virginia already on Tuesday, but they won't play another solid team per se for a little bit after that. I mean, softball's a little different because you kind of never know, but Purdue, Fort Wayne, Bryant, Lafayette, so they'll play in one of those tournaments and should be able to pick up some wins for a team that just, you want to keep building chemistry, keep building kind of a solid cushioning, because I expect them to take their lumps in Big Ten play. But it'll be interesting to hear what Lauren Karn has to say in a couple weeks when we have her on the pod. So moving past softball onto the other diamond sport, the baseball team, big series this weekend against Charlotte. Mike took home a 2-1 series win. Lost the first game, but then bounced back for a couple wins. What did you see from the boys at the Bob? Well, not at the Bob, but that team.
I think Sunday was really promising. So there was supposed to be a game Saturday, got postponed. There's a doubleheader Sunday instead because of rain. Game 1, you kind of saw an offensive dominated game. 5 home runs hit by the Terps, 2 from freshman Chris Akopian. He's really blossoming into a star here. And then Game 2 was really dominated by the pitching staff. Only 2 runs allowed in the 7-inning second game. I think we've really seen Logan Barrier turn into the long relief option that the Terps needed last season. Sunday, he pitched 3 scoreless innings, closed out the game for Maryland. So huge to have that from him. I believe he struck out 5 in that game. And honestly, the pitching staff as a whole has been so much more increased from last season. Friday, a little bit of a dud. Gave up a bunch of runs early. Didn't give up any past the 4th, but 9 runs in the first 4 innings. Kind of killed them. But we've seen it. Kenny Lippman had a rough outing Friday, but he's got a 2.93 ERA. He's starting on Fridays for the Terps. He's given 3 really great performances. Logan Coaster on Saturdays, he has a 2.45 ERA. He's doing great there. And then they've been throwing in the freshman Joey McManus on Sundays. He's really only pitched around 3 innings in his starts, but he only has a 3.18 ERA. So you've got really strong starters for those weekend games. And then for the midweeks, you have Ryan Van Buren, who's been playing phenomenal to start off the season, has a sub-4 ERA. And then the pitching staff as a whole, Last year, they had the fourth worst ERA in the Big Ten. It was in the sevens. They've now, I believe it's first or second best ERA in the Big Ten, 3.98. That's like decreased by 4 runs from last season. An insane improvement. I think that says a lot about new pitching coach Jimmy Jackson, what he's kind of been instilling with the players, using the TrackMan technology, using a little bit of motor preferences to fine-tune their throws and stuff. But yeah, really promising performances across the board from the Terps this past weekend.
I feel like I'm getting to know this team really well. I got to read about Kevin Keister and his leadership. I know about Pat Sos and them, and now I'm going to get to find more about the TrackMan and stuff too with Mike's piece. So really been good. Can you tell us just really briefly what do the Terps have upcoming?
So they got a game. They got a series against Portland coming up this weekend. It's going to be a really late game. It's Friday night. Starts at 9 since they're on the West Coast. Portland 8-5. Again, Terps just hope to have a winning week. Beat Mount St. Mary's tomorrow, Tuesday. At the time of this is released, I believe Maryland will have won that game. So you'll want the Terps to go 2-1 against Portland because Terps don't really have a lot of strong opponents on their schedule. You saw last season their RPI, it's kind of the metric baseball uses for teams to get into the postseason. The Terps had a low RPI. It was like 35th. And despite winning the Big Ten regular season and the tournament, they still were not given a regional host. They were given one of the toughest seeds, actually, having to go to Wake Forest. So it's really important for them to pick up these games against kind of mid to good teams.
Definitely, and be interested to see what they do on the West Coast when they have to travel. The wrestling team did not have to travel for the tournament because it was here in College Park, played in Xfinity, where they don't usually go, so I guess they had to travel a little bit, Brendan. But NCAA tournament was here at the Big Ten Championship. They finished 10th, but they had 4 people on the podium, which Brendan says is the most ever. Take us through a little bit about what the wrestling team did this week.
Yeah, absolutely. They walked down the hall, if you will, to get from the pavilion to the Xfinity Center. But you have to be happy with that weekend. I think that expectations are probably a little bit higher. I think they probably could have finished a little bit better if everything went right. But hey, at the end of the day, they finished with their best finish ever, and so you really can't be mad about that. Like you said, Sam, 4 finished on the podium. Braxton Brown got 6th, Ethan Miller 4th, Jackson Smith 4th, Seth Nevels 8th. So some pretty solid podium performances there. Brown, Ethan Miller, and Smith will all be going to the NCAA championships. Cal Miller and Seth Nevels are hoping to get at-large bids, but hey, having 3 to 5 people go to the NCAA championships, and they're not just going to the NCAA championships, they're in positions to score points for the Terps, so really have to be happy overall with the season, and like I said, best finish, so hopefully, have some more action to cover in a few weeks at the NCAA tournament if they can make some noise.
I'm going to take some upsets. I don't know. Does March Madness apply to wrestling? We'll have to see. But that's the topic of our draft for this week. March Madness, right around the corner. So what we're going to be doing is taking 3 players that we'd want to have, men's and women's, on our team for a March Madness run. So you're going to get 3 players. These can be either really, really good players or players that just they're clutch in March. Let's get it started. I'm going to go first and take the hold. I'm going to go with Juan Dixon, best player on that national championship team. Feels like that's an obvious pick, but I'm just going to grab him off the board real quick.
I'll assume the number 2 spot, and I'm going to take Christy Tolliver, another cornerstone of a championship team and possibly the clutchest shot in March of any Terp all time.
I'll stay with the Gary Williams era, and I'll go with my first pick with Grievous Vasquez. And then I'll come right back, and I will take a wild card. I'll take Angel Reese.
Yeah, I like that.
Going to go into the Mark Turgeon era, and I'm going to take Anthony Cowan Jr. Hit a bunch of clutch shots in his career, never got that chance in 2020 to have his shining moment.
Pandering to the crowds. I'm going to go to the women's side, and I'm going to really just space the floor, really make it a good team with shooting. And I'm going to I'm between 2, but I'm going to take Chloe Bibby. And then for my third pick, I'm going to go, we need a versatile forward. Give me Marissa Coleman.
You're thinking about your roster construction there. I guess I'll do that with my pick. I've taken 2 guards. I need a big man or someone on the women's side. I'm going to take Brianna Jones, second all-time scorer in Maryland women's history.
Unlike Mike and like Kevin Willard, I will not think about roster construction, and I will take Melo Trimble.
And that's it. Good picks. Real quick, just to recap it, I had Juwan Dixon, Chloe Bibby, Crystal Lang, or Marissa Coleman. Mike had Christy Tolliver, Anthony Cowan, Brianna Jones. That's a good team, Mike. Good job. And Brendan had Grievous Vasquez, Angel Reese, and Melo Trimble. I like that team.
All right, staying with kind of the themes of the drafts. Last week, I drafted the terrific Terp and did a little bit more research into her story, so I'll let me hit you with it. Cindy Timchel is the winningest coach in NCAA women's lacrosse history. She grew up in Pennsylvania and played lacrosse at Westchester University, despite not playing lacrosse in high school. After college in 1977, she helped coach lacrosse, field hockey, and basketball at a high school in Pennsylvania. And 2 years later, she moved up in the ranks to UPenn, where she was an assistant coach for lacrosse and field hockey. In 1982, Timchel got her first head coaching job. Northwestern offered her the head coaching position. The only problem, they didn't yet have a team. She took a new program to the NCAA tournament in 5 of her 9 seasons. And in 2024, Northwestern is still one of the top programs of all time with 8 national championships. And their current coach is also a Maryland lacrosse alum who launched the program in 2002 after it was disbanded. When Timchel came to Maryland and left Northwestern, became the head coach at Maryland. And they only had 1 national championship when she got here. When she left, the Terps had 9. Including 7 in a row from 1995 to 2001. Timchel was the coach of one of the most dominant dynasties in college history. After the 2006 season, Timchel unexpectedly left the program to head to Annapolis. She was given the opportunity to do at Navy what she did at Northwestern and build up the program. She's coached there since 2007, when the team was a club team, and since 2008, they have been a Division I NCAA team. She has not made it back to winning a national championship, but has had success in the NCAA tournament. And this year, Navy is currently ranked 18th in the nation. The winningest coach of all time and leader of an unstoppable dynasty is this week's terrific Terp.
Well, Brendan talked about championships last week and continued the trend this week, so super fun, terrific Terp. That wraps up this week's episode. Real quick programming note. That sounds kind of cool to say. Next week, we will have a bonus episode, not necessarily Maryland related, but a name that you will definitely know when it comes to March Madness. Someone who took down a giant, literally, last year. And yeah, you can find that episode at Spotify, Apple, YouTube now as well at Under the Shell. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Under the Shell. You can find all of us on Twitter as well at our link tree. So give us a follow, give us a shout, keep up with all the episodes. We've really appreciated the support recently, and enjoy sunny weather wherever you guys are off to for spring break. Have a good one.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell podcast. Nobody does it better.